Welcome to Ask Sean, where I explore all sorts of questions about life, relationships, and being human. I'm Sean Slevin, a licensed professional counselor and a licensed marriage and family therapist. And if you have an anonymous question for me, you can send that to me via www.asksean.org. So today what I want to talk about is actually a product review, which is not something I've done very much, or I don't think really at all yet here on the channel. And, it's a little funny for me trying to do product reviews in that, I'm not very oriented towards sales. I had an experience in high school where I tried to sell stuff door to door, and it was a disaster. And part of that is because I'm just not interested in trying to convince people that they need something. That just doesn't work with how I'm built psychologically. But I do really like sharing about cool things and things that I think that might be helpful. And so the product today that I want to talk about is something that I'm using myself. I've been using for several months. I'm finding it useful. I actually have a client who has been using it. Coincidentally, I didn't know that they had been using this, but it came up recently, and so I'll share some about that. And yeah, I think it's a promising, interesting little gadget that I think a lot of folks might find useful, and so I wanted to do a video on it. So this is called the Apollo Neuro. So it's a wearable device. This is not a fitness tracker, just to be clear. It's a wearable device that is meant to kind of help your body through a kind of touch therapy, tend to be more regulated, help you to be able to kind of shift states. I think I would say kind of more readily, more easily. So I'll get a bit more into that, and kind of what it does, how it works. Kind of my thoughts on it, kind of the sort of the pros and cons of it, and I hope that how this can be useful to you is you trying to kind of feel out, is this something that you want to give a try or not? I'm not a believer of everybody should buy every single thing. There's lots of cool things out there, and that doesn't mean we all should buy them. But for some of us, some of those cool things are going to be the right fit. And so, this might be something that might be the right fit for you. This company, they do offer a 30-day free return policy, which that was helpful to me in terms of because I was I'm not totally sure if this is going to feel worth it or not. And I'll be honest here on the front end, the effect is not dramatic. That's sort of another interesting kind of angle in terms of doing a video. It's not this is gonna change your life. It's no. It might be really helpful. It might be an important component, in work that you're doing to change your life. But no device can do for us the work that we have to be doing for ourselves too. Something like this can help us along the way, though. And so I think that's kind of a way of thinking about it. And I think in terms of a strong selling point or whatever in terms of from my end is that I decided to keep it, and I use it every day, multiple times a day. And I don't do that with things that I don't find effective. I'm just not going to. So even though it's subtle, it's it's not a dramatic impact in terms of, in my life. When it came time, when it was coming towards the end of the 30 days, and it was okay, am I going to keep this? Am I going to return this? I was I really want to keep it. I'm not really wanting to send it back. So there's something, in that's hard to articulate, that my insides are no, this is feeling useful to me. Now I'll get into some more of the specifics there about that, in terms of my experience of it and whatnot. But yeah, so just wanted to be, I guess, upfront about, a couple things, and kind of in addition to all that. One is that, I know sometimes with like product reviews, like a company will send a device, for someone to try out. That's not the case with this. Like I heard about it on a podcast and I was like, oh, that sounds interesting to me. It sounds like it would have some benefits that I would align with things that I value and that I'm trying to work on in terms of improving my life and my well-being. And so yes, I've just been trying it out as a fellow customer. So I'm coming up on, I want to say 3 months now that I've been using it. So a decent chunk of time, initial time here. Like I said, I've chosen to keep it, after, kind of when I came up on that initial 30-day window, and I continue to use it, and I do use it every day. And then I also, like I said, I'll talk later about that I have a client who's been using it, and that's another angle that I'm really intrigued on, and part of why I wanted to do a video is because I want to be able to make my clients aware of this. I'm curious about the therapeutic benefit, which again I think is going to be subtle, but could be worthwhile. Could be an added boost in a non-medication, kind of route. Not that I'm anti-medication, but medications have costs in terms of how they impact our body and whatnot. I guess was another thing I wanted to disclose here at the beginning. Oh yeah, so because I've decided that this is a product that feels worth my, I feel good enough about it to promote it in the non-salesy way that I promote things. I have signed up for their affiliate program, so there'll be a link in the description, and that'll be an affiliate link. And that means two things in this particular case. One, it should get you a pretty decent discount. I think probably the best discount that they offer, barring any kind of sales they might be doing. And I will get some kind of a, small commission on that. So you don't have to use my link, if you don't want to. And obviously don't buy this if you don't think it's right for you, we don't need more stuff just to have stuff. But yeah, wanted to be upfront about all that. So yeah, let's get a little bit more into what this thing is, how it works. So as I said, it's a wearable device. So the idea is that you would wear it. I'm gonna get my sleeve pulled up here. That you'd wear it on the inside of your wrist. So that's making contact with your wrist, or you can wear it on your ankle. It also comes with a clip, like if you want to wear it like inside clothing. It's going to be most impactful the more kind of, I'd say, snug contact it has, with your body. And it works by vibrations. It has, and what's kind of cool and interesting about it, like I feel like they've done a decent job with how they have designed the device and how they've designed the app, because it's actually quite versatile. Like it has, I don't know, maybe I want to say maybe like 8 different modes, and then with each mode you can set the length of time and you can set the intensity. So that actually gives like you get a lot of variability. I mean, that's a lot of combinations you can do, but you also can just like, just go with the default settings. And so, which I think is kind of nice, because it can also be overwhelming to kind of think about like, oh, well, should I do this? Should I do that? So length of time obviously is just how long is a given sequence going to run. And I'll talk about the different, kind of modes in a moment. And then intensity is just kind of the intensity of the vibration pattern. One of the things they're clear on is that like greater intensity isn't automatically going to infer greater benefit. They just provide that variation of intensity because everybody's body is different. And so, some bodies are going to be very sensitive, and so you're going to want to, set it on just very light. And other bodies are like, I need it cranked all the way up to 11 so that I can actually feel something. So it's more about just being able to dial in, kind of what's right for your system. So I think that's really nifty. I think, it's all pretty understandable. So it does work with an app that you install on your smartphone, on Android or on iPhone. And it connects via Bluetooth. I recently finally got a new phone after 5+ years of like just crawling along on a very old phone. And So I had to use it on like my tablet because my old phone was too old uh, to be able to install the app on. But on my new phone, it connects, which is a Samsung. It connects very quickly. So if you have a decently recent phone, it should should work pretty well. And it has buttons on it, and so you can change the intensity with the buttons. So without having to open the app, you can also relaunch whatever the last mode was, by pushing both buttons at the same time. So that's kind of nice. I think in terms of like having a device that doesn't have a screen, I think that's a pretty effective and kind of clever way to give it some functionality without having to open the app. And so then, within the app, you've got a number of different modes. There's, I'll kind of go through them, I guess, in the order of the day in terms of how I use them. So there's a kind of an energizing, waking up kind of mode. So I'll use that usually kind of in a short time frame after I get up, which I find helpful. There's a mode for kind of like rebuild and recover, for after workouts. And so I'll use that in the morning, like after I've done like rowing machine, aerobic, kind of activity, or after like horseback riding, those kinds of things. So that's been useful. There's some modes around like concentration, to kind of help you sort of be more focused. There's also some other modes around just kind of like sort of being present, being alert. Like one's kind of like social and open, I want to say. So I'll use some of those for like if I'm like really kind of trying to hone in on a project that I'm working on, or if my energy's kind of dragging a bit, I might use some of these, either the energizing one or the social and open one, just to kind of like say, hey body, it's not nap time. Like we have things to do. People we're trying to be engaged with. Let's kind of stay present. And I'll just say, none of those feel jarring, they're not like, that's one interesting things about how this works. Like none of it is like an elevating, like nervous, kind of feeling. It's just like helping the body feel like readiness, which is a nice feeling. And there's like a mode for kind of end of day, like kind of a winding down, which I'll use sometimes. Like particularly if I've been a bit sort of my system's been feeling intense from something from the day, or something difficult I was working through. Just as an aid to kind of like, okay, we're coming down. They have one related to kind of meditation. That's useful. And then this is the one that actually was why I bought this, was the mode that I was most interested in, which they have a mode related to sleep. My body's really sensitive. My sleep can be disturbed by a cricket 3 miles down the road. My system's just very aware of things, and so I've done lots of things, that help with that, right? But I was just, anything else that kind of gives me another little boost in terms of my sleep. So it has a mode for sleep that's, kind of really meant to kind of help soothe the body into kind of a sleep state. And I honestly really love that. That's, of all the modes, that's the one that I would say has probably impacted me the most, though I use a number of the others daily, and do find them helpful. So I'll wear it on my wrist, and then I actually like to then like hold my my wrist. Sorry, I thought for a second I had activated it. That it was like I'm remembering how it feels, but I'll hold it, my hand on my chest, and so I'm actually kind of getting a sort of bonus vibration there, because I'm getting the vibration through my wrist, but I'm also feeling it on my breastbone, and it's just a really soothing, like, I don't know, it's like feeling the heartbeat of the universe kind of thing. I mean, that maybe sounds a little cosmic woo-woo or whatever, but it just, I don't know, it just feels really lovely. And yeah, that's a really nice thing. I guess I should say a little bit about like kind of more about what is the idea, kind of the science behind how these work. Or I guess let me clarify. I'm not going to try to unpack all the details of the science. You can go to their website. You can if you want to get into nuts and bolts of it. But just to say a couple of things that I think are interesting. So it's working off of vibrations. It's working off of touch. I do think as a culture, we are very touch starved. Yeah, I mean, in other cultures, in some cultures, people are touching each other all the time. And that's actually good for the body. It enables a lot more sort of co-regulation. So, I mean, I'm grateful to have a pretty rich community of relationships where I do get touched regularly and get hugged and whatnot. But honestly, I would be happy to have a lot more. And I think all of us could use a lot more. So, it's this irony of like, we're in this technological age that is part of why we're less connected to each other. And so, I'm like, well, if we have to use technology to help, kind of undo some of that, help our bodies have more of a sense of being touched, it's like, okay, well, I think ultimately we want to be in community in close enough proximity that we're touching one another more, safely, obviously, and appropriately, hope that's, I shouldn't have to say that, but, I know people do awful things and whatnot, but safe, kind of helpful, supportive touch. So it's working off of kind of touch therapy. And there's also something interesting. I heard this in one of the podcasts. Can't remember which one, so I'm not realistically not gonna be able to remember to be able to link to it in the description. But they were talking about some of because one of the things I was curious about is so it vibrates and it vibrates in different patterns. How do they figure out which patterns to do? Is this just arbitrary, which then makes me think about placebo effect, which I do want to talk about. Here, I remember to come back to that in a few minutes. But they talked about, if I remember correctly, and I may not have all these details exactly right, but it was something, the gist of it was that part of how they honed in on things that they basically did some biofeedback experiments in terms of I think their initial trying to test out their hypothesis. Could we design a product, design a device that would vibrate in ways and in patterns and rhythms that would be good for the body in different kinds of ways? And so they set up some kind of biofeedback mechanism where they could be tracking various vitals in the body in real time and then be experimenting with different kinds of wavelengths, which that conceptually I find really fascinating and really interesting and intuitively is plausible, right? In terms of evaluating, is this really doing something, or is this, just placebo, which again, I want to, kind of say some things about that in a few minutes. Is there an actual benefit to something like this? I mean, when we think about something like music, which is vibrations, is, different wavelengths. I mean, we know music can impact the body. We know that can impact our mood, and we can shift states dramatically based on music. I mean, many of us have put on a certain song because we want to tap into a certain emotion, whether that's anger we're trying to work through, or whether it's sadness or joy. So we know that music, has huge ability to impact the body and the psyche, impact the soul. And so I think it is very plausible then, okay, can we dial in on that principle with something that's not making music, this is not a music device or anything, but is operating on the same scientific principles of how vibrations, interact with us. And can we try to dial in different vibrational patterns that would have different effects? So all of that's really interesting to me, and that feels plausible. That feels very believable that could work. Yeah. But to say something about placebo, because placebo gets a bad rap. And, while I do think this is doing something, that's my felt sense and, kind of my instinct. Again, not dramatic. It's not like, it's altered the course of my life in a major way, but it's been helpful enough that I keep using it. It's helpful enough that I kept it, and it's not cheap. I mean, I want to say its list price is $400. I was able to get it on sale, so I think after tax I was paying maybe around $360, $370 or something. If you use the coupon that I'll be linking to, that your price will probably be kind of, or maybe around there, something like that, after the coupon and tax. So I mean, that's a chunk of change. So my instinct is it's not only placebo, but let's just think for a moment, like what placebo is so like in a say an experiment where they give one person a medicine pill and another person they just give them a sugar pill. And this is an interesting thing and kind of like a dirty secret about a lot of psychiatric meds is that a lot of them they're barely better than placebo, or in some cases aren't, are not. And what placebo is it's the body doing its own healing. So we understand this more readily when we think about, like, you get a wound on your hand, and so you clean the hand out, and you put a Band-Aid over it, put some Neosporin on it or whatever, and then you do nothing, and the body heals itself. That's placebo. Like, that's the body doing its own thing naturally, right? And so if just say hypothetically, say this isn't doing a damn thing on its own. Say it's all snake water, which I don't think is true. But say if that's the case, it still is having an effect. And especially, this is really interesting actually when I talk about this one client example. And that effect is that it at the minimum, it is leveraging my own system's ability to promote healthy things. And that's worth a lot. Like, anything that helps us leverage what our body is trying to do, what our psyche is trying to do, is actually really, really useful. Like, we should not minimize that as a culture. We should not be like, oh, well, that's just placebo, so that doesn't count. No, that's just the magic of your body and mind to heal itself. That's fucking amazing. Like, how can we leverage that more, right? Like, now, there's limits, right? Like, I'm not going to, grow another arm if I lose an arm, the body can't do everything, but it can do a lot. The body and the mind can do a lot. Now, again, I don't think this is placebo. I think it actually is doing something, right? But even if it's a mix of, the belief in it doing something, leveraging, that placebo effect of, like, my system, bringing more kind of ability, more, capacity, more resources online. Even if that's partly that, like, well, for me, that's worth it. But yeah, that's kind of my little soapbox on placebo. Wonderful placebo. So, at any rate, I think it's more than placebo, but even if you're thinking just that, it's something to consider. Like, is this something that, can be useful to you? So I want to give this little example about this client. Obviously not going to disclose any personal details, but they shared recently that they coincidentally to me. So I had not, because I've not started mentioning this to clients. Like, this video will be the way that I'll pass this on to clients to say, hey, check this out. See if this feels like something that you would want to try. So I have a client who has been doing a lot of great inner work around being able to be more regulated, being able to soothe their system with some difficult stuff, doing a lot of difficult work with child parts, childhood trauma and whatnot. And they have found a really marked difference through using the Apollo Neuro. And, they've had the same kind of question of, like, could it be, just placebo? But they're like, you know what? If it is, I don't freaking care, because it helps me. It's helping me to soothe myself more effectively. Now, I think a thing to be clear on, and that they were clear on, is that like this if you're not already working at learning how to soothe your system, this isn't going to be able to make up for that. Like, it can't do all the work for you. What it can do, potentially, what I suspect, and what this client very, very much felt, is that this can boost what you're already doing. Now in my particular case, I wasn't getting this for myself in terms of needing a ton of regulation. Like, I'm pretty regulated. I've had a lot of therapy. I'm still in therapy. I continue to work on my stuff. So I think that in some ways relates to sort of, for me, the boost is smaller, but still enough that I've decided to keep it and keep using it, but for this client, who's someone who's earlier in their healing journey and whatnot, and has been in some really intense places, like they use it every day, like all day, like they're maxing out the battery use, on it, kind of thing. So that's something I'm intrigued by, and part of where I'm kind of curious about sort of the therapeutic benefits of how can this be like a boost to the work that clients are doing to resource themselves, to be able to soothe their systems, to calm their systems, to be able to sort of try to shift between different states again, thinking about the different modes that the Apollo Neuro can work in. So that would be one of the things that I would, I guess, commend to you to kind of consider, if you are doing work around learning how to soothe your system, check out my videos on breath. That's a great starting point. There's a lot of ways of using the body to calm the nervous system, so that we can do difficult emotional work. So this might be another kind of tool in your toolkit to consider. Again, I don't want to oversell it in terms of like, oh, this is gonna magically change your life, or everybody has to have one of these. Like, there's lots of different routes, right? Like, but if something about this is piquing your curiosity, if you're noticing just even in your body, as I'm talking about this and describing different things, that you're like, oh, that feels really nice. Like, I love his description about like, the going to sleep with it, on his chest, or something, to energize me when I'm waking up, or, some of these different things. Listen to those instincts. And that doesn't, and here's the thing, that doesn't necessarily mean you ultimately need to buy one of these, right? But if there's anything that sort of has lit up for you, as I've been doing this video, as you're watching this video, then listen to that, because that at the least is telling you there's something in that direction that you're wanting to explore. There's something in that direction that you are, that you're needing to give some attention to. That could be through, getting one of these. It could be through some other avenues, right? Like, it doesn't have to be, this. But yeah. So I'm trying to think if there's any other things I wanted to be sure to cover. I can't think of anything. It's like I'm wanting to convey that it's useful, but I'm not wanting to oversell it. And that's, you can feel there my own issues and conflictedness about promoting things. But yeah, like I said, I find it really useful. I use it every day. This client of mine, very much has found it helpful, found it very, very, very impactful. And I'm going to be kind of paying attention to, it's a data point of one, right? But I'm going to be paying attention to if other clients decide to start trying it out, kind of, what's their experience, how much do they feel like this helps them? So I hope you found this useful. If you're somebody who is considering the Apollo Neuro, I hope this can give you, I know there's lots of great review, YouTube channels and whatnot that are going to be a bit more, probably a bit more organized, to be frank, and kind of, have nifty videos and whatever. And I hope that this gives you more of a real world, like, I'm talking to you about this the way I would talk to a friend. That like, here, this is cool. This might be nifty for you. It might not be the right thing for you. And yeah, I hope that whatever you do, that you'll do what makes sense for you. So, don't buy something you don't feel like you need. But if you do feel like you want to try something, I hope that you will value yourself enough to put the money out there. That's really the way to think about it. Is like you're worth the experiment, right? Give it a try for 30 days if you are feeling a curiosity and inkling, and then if you're like, it's not feeling worth it to me, it's not feeling enough of a benefit to keep, then before the 30 days is up, reach out to them and say, yeah, I'd like to send it back. Or if you're at this point, you're like, I'm curious, but I'm not ready to pull the trigger, then just, sit on that a bit. Like, don't rush it. Don't force yourself, right? And if you're having a very clear, like, yeah, that's not for me, like, then you should listen to that. So, yeah, whatever you do, I hope you do what feels right for you. So, until next time, peace be with you.